Welcome to the Rosa and Rhea podcast, where two sisters talk about sex, love, and relationships. Today, we're going to take you on a journey. This one is Dating 201. So if you haven't heard Dating 101 yet, press pause, go back and listen to Dating 101 and get up to date.
What did we talk about last time? We talked about a lot of good stuff, and I really want to spend some time elaborating on some of that stuff we talked about. We talked about dating, Tinder, online dating, a lot of online dating tips.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sexting going on. You said not to text so much. That was a really great tip. Love that. And then, of course, the fantasies that people make up in their heads before they even meet someone. So there's all kinds of great stuff that we talked about on that last podcast.
100%. That's like one of the main things, like leave the text, leave the talking, leaving the getting to know each other for when you're actually on the date, because that's really enjoyable, and that's the whole point. That's the whole reason you're there. I want to go back even further, though. I want to talk about the importance of really knowing exactly what you want before you even go on a date. You have to know what you want, and Rhea says that you should even write it down.
Okay, yeah, and you know what? I didn't write it down, but I have thought about it extensively because, like I mentioned in the last episode, I've been online dating before where I haven't really known what I wanted, and I was just sort of winging it and kind of wasting people's times. And my time, right, as well. So I think it's really important to know yourself, know what you're looking for in a relationship, and then be upfront with it, like, right away. So put it in your profile. But before that, you can write it down at home or whatever and just say, this is what I'm looking for, monogamy, non-monogamy. I need this level of communication. That's important for a lot of people, too. Like, some women say they like it when a guy texts them every single day, right? And that's really super important. Well, what's the point of going on a guy who doesn't want to communicate with you?
Yeah, that's a waste of your time.
That's exactly.
For me, I personally wouldn't give the advice that you're giving as far as putting it out there exactly what you want. On the first 3 dates, I think that the reason why it's so important to write it down is because you want to remind yourself what you want.
Yes.
Okay? You don't actually necessarily need to remind the other person what you want, because the first 3 dates, you are basically looking for good things, good connections, also red flags. A red flag being something that doesn't align with your desires. You should know exactly what you want because for yourself, so that you can look on the first few dates to see if those things line up. But you don't necessarily need to be having big conversations like that right off the bat.
And I guess more what I was referring to as far as like online dating, what you should be putting in your profile is like, do I actually want to go on a date with someone, right? Or do I just want casual sex?
Right.
I think those would be important things to know right off the bat.
Maybe. Honestly, if I see a guy on Bumble that says, because you can choose on Bumble if you like are looking for a relationship or not or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Even if he says that on his Bumble profile, I don't take that like as truth whatsoever.
That's true.
So that's the other thing. It's like, for me, you definitely want to store away little comments that people make while you're getting to know them, but you also want to be very aware of their actions. And these actions, are they lining up with the things that you've written down as far as what you're looking for? So I think that's another reason why you should always be so on the ball as to what you want. So for me personally, back in the spring, I did not want a boyfriend. I was looking for a guy who was on the same page as me in that regard. Just sex, maybe explore sexually, do some things for the first time. So I went on some dates. I did that with a couple guys. It was awesome. And then as the months progressed, I decided that I want a boyfriend. Okay, so I'm looking for like a love partner, somebody like I can really connect with. It's so funny. And who knows if that's gonna stay the same, but that's what I'm looking for now. That's what I know for sure that I want. So when I go on a date and the second date I can tell all he wants is just sex, then I'm not gonna see the guy again. And I think that's really fair.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very good point. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, so I think that everybody needs to really like zoom out, and that's the first question that they need to ask themselves. You would agree, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And we talked a lot about this, but like okay, so before you even get in the dating ring, you should know what you want in your mind, maybe even write it down, and really have it there in the forefront of your mind when you're dating, so you're not wasting people's time and your own.
What ends up happening is that with a lot of women is that they will lie to themselves about what they want
Yes.
in order to get attention or dates. So an example of that would be, say I know I want a boyfriend. I know I want all those cuddles and all the beautiful things that come with having a relationship. But I meet a guy who doesn't want a boyfriend, but I really like him. I'll just be like, even lying to myself, like, oh, that's okay. We can just keep it casual. That's totally fine. So you get into a position where you're lying to yourself so that you can stay hanging out with this dude who you probably have a crush on. And lying to yourself will never get you what you want.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that's another thing you have to be on the forefront of your mind. You have to be so aware of that.
Yeah, and it's so, okay, the thing that I was going to say is that you have to know what you want, but you also really have to be comfortable being single and really love yourself. I know it's very cheesy.
Yeah.
And we've heard this over and over. Every dating person will say it. It's like you literally, you can't be in a relationship with someone unless you are absolutely comfortable being totally alone. I feel like a successful relationship.
Yeah.
If you're, and then what you said is absolutely right. You can't fuck people into loving you.
Yeah.
We said that last time. And you can't force people to want to go out with you or have a relationship or even date you or convince them. People have to be ready for it. You can't force it.
100%. So once you've figured out what you want, and you got to start going on dates that are conducive to getting what you want. Okay? So once you're like aware of you're lying to yourself, you've gotten right with yourself, you love yourself, how you gonna win if you ain't right within?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've gotten all that down pat. I mean, obviously loving yourself is a lifelong journey. But you need to have that as a practice in your mind for sure, and in your daily life, so that when you go through disappointments or you go through challenges or you go through a period of time where you're single, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you can get to a point where you convince yourself, well, it's okay, I just want to have sex with this guy, even though he doesn't want a relationship like I do. I'm just horny. Basically, you'll find any reason to rationalize going against your actual goals if you're not right with yourself.
Yeah, and I've done that a billion times.
Yeah. So,
like you're lonely, and that's
too.
the thing when you're by yourself, your loneliness, and you have to listen to those voices in your head, and that is like, why am I doing this when I know it's not going to progress me forward? It's just people get lonely, right? And then they go to people that aren't aligning with their goals, but they do it anyways.
Yeah.
So.
And so once you've gotten all that right and you start going on dates, you need to go on dates that are conducive to that. So don't go get wasted with somebody at the Roxy on a date, okay? How are you're not going to get to know them. Oops, sorry. What else? Don't go, on a group date. You need to basically do things where you can connect with somebody, have a conversation. Like, still have fun, obviously. Go to your favorite restaurant, go to your favorite brewery, but have good conversations where you can find out if this person is on the same page as you.
Yeah, and you know what I've discovered, and I'm sure everyone can relate, that you cannot get to know someone by just having sex with them. Because I've literally,
you cannot.
I've tried it all.
We tried it, so just so you know, it's not possible.
And I'm just thinking now, I'm just thinking right now about it, and I'm thinking, I've probably had sex with someone numerous times, and then when I think about it, I don't know shit about them.
Totally. But
right?
You have created this fantasy in your head, that you guys are basically boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yes.
And I do that all the time. Or at least I used to. For years.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the woman's contribution to this kind of weird cyclical thing that we get into, where it's like you date for 3 weeks or 5 weeks, and then somebody gets angsty, and then the other person's like, what are you talking about? We're not together. And then usually the girl, or usually me more specifically, will be like, well, what are we, and what's going on, and don't you like me, and push, and then the guy's like, whoa, I don't like you at all like that.
Yeah.
And then you go away thinking wow, guys are such dicks. But we do play a part in that. in that we are building this fantasy. We're trying to get to know guys by having sex with them, and we're not keeping our goals at the forefront of our mind as far as what we want in a relationship.
Yes, exactly.
So
That's not how you get to know someone.
Yeah, and I think that's really wise. Like we have to reiterate these really simple things that are obvious to some people, but they weren't obvious to us, and that's what we've learned.
Yeah, and I want to say too, it's okay if you don't want to get to know people and you just want to have casual sex and live on that level. Because you said that that's what you were doing a few months ago. I've been there, but again, you change. Sometimes you want one thing, the next day you want another. So then, how do you change your behavior to now reach your new goals, right?
Totally, but there's also a responsibility in that. So, for example, with me, I wanted to have a friends with benefits situation, or I wanted to fuck guys casually and have new experiences. So basically, I was very upfront about that. So that because a guy could be looking for a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he might get really upset if I act like I'm going on these dates to get to know him deeply, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, you should have known I just wanted sex.
Yeah.
In that situation, I think the responsibility is to be very clear that you are just looking for a hookup.
The themes of my love life these days, the theme is I want reciprocation. So I don't I don't want to just have a guy. Like there's these guys, they think, well, I'm just fucking you. Isn't that enough? And it's not. Okay. I need something. And so when I see especially because some of these guys that I've seen, these are married guys, and that's fine. I am not judging people stepping out of their marriage, or, I understand the difficulties of monogamous relationships. But what I'm saying is when you have nothing to offer, and or you're unwilling to offer anything in return, you should not be messing with people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying about the responsibility.
Yeah, there is some responsibility.
It can seem really harsh, but I guess either way, you should be pretty upfront about what it is that you want with yourself and with the other person. Obviously, if you're looking for like a loving relationship, you want to give that information a little bit more tenderly, because I think with guys, say I go on a first date and I'm like, I'm looking for a life spiritual partner. The guy's going to run away.
Yeah.
Right? They might not even have heard those 3 words strung together before.
Yes.
So you don't want to be putting all that on somebody right away, but you also want to make it clear that you're not just looking for a hookup.
Yeah.
But okay, so then we get into, maybe you've gone on like 4 or 5 dates, and maybe you are, texting a little bit more, and you have gotten to know each other to the point where it makes sense if you ask about their aunt's birthday party and how it went, or maybe you're getting invited to these family events, 3 or 4 months in. And a lot of questions lately have been coming in about how do you get to that level? So how do you get to a deeper level of dating, basically the next step before saying I love you, before a relationship? There is that little part where how do you step onto the next stepping stone, and how do you get there? So I had some advice for that as well. I think one of the most important things, again, is setting up dates where you can connect. So just like in the beginning, first 3 dates, you want to do stuff that, is conducive to good conversation. I think you need to remember, once you've, had sex with this person and you're starting to, you see each other regularly, make sure that you're not just having sex all the time. Leave room for the connection, for the conversation, and still keep going out on dates. Mm-hmm. Okay? Put yourselves in new positions together as a new dating couple.
A little bit of adventure is okay too. I like it. I'm not an extreme dater. Like some people are like, let's go on a crazy this or that.
No.
But I think a little bit of excitement is good to build the hormones up for, I don't know what it's called, the sexy hormones.
Yeah.
The
pheromones.
endorphins.
Yeah. Like, I think what happens a lot in Vancouver, or at least my experience, is like you go on a few dates, then you fuck, and then basically you just meet up to fuck, and you like get into this like, we've already been dating for 3 years kind of cycle. So don't skip the important steps in between, which are continue to go on dates, because you can get to know somebody so well, the sixth date, the seventh date, maybe you are sleeping together, but the first 3 dates you're on your best behavior, and you're not as comfortable. So date 6, you get to a restaurant, it's a 30-minute wait. You look at each other, what do? You're going to learn immediately about each other, about how you both interact in this kind of situation. You're going to have a conversation. Should we wait? What is it boring while you wait outside? Does he get into a bad mood because he doesn't want to wait 30 minutes? You know what I mean? Is he then cranky? Does he show a little bit of his bad behaviors? So all of these things are still important to know, because if all you do is just Netflix and fuck, then you're just going to be in that glow of he's so amazing, and you might stop being so honest with yourself, or you might get caught up in all that excitement and sexual pleasure and forget your goals.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's happened to me too before. So I think that happens a lot as well. And my advice for that, again, is like, you need to give it time. So keep going on the dates, keep doing things that you can connect on a deeper level. So conversation, and basically, the most basic thing is to listen to what she's saying or what he's saying and remember it, and then bring it up another time.
Yes.
So the person knows that they've been heard. The person knows that you think about them when they're not around, and that you want to talk about things that are important to them. And then, open up to them too. Especially for women, that it gets me so wet.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, and I think that women get so turned on when a man listens to them. It's so rare.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like a very hot tip, you guys. I shouldn't even be telling guys this.
I know. Because there's going to be some tricky guys out there pretending to listen now. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But listen, women love that. And when I was thinking about this, I remember every guy that I felt was really, truly listening to me. Even though, even if it didn't turn into a relationship, I remember those guys. And it's the kind of thing where a guy will ask you something, and then he'll bring it up another time. He'll be like, oh, I remember you said you liked doing that, so we're doing that today. Yes. Or I remembered that you like this food, so I thought I'd take you to this restaurant.
Yeah.
That kind of thing is so powerful in dating, because that's what women want. They want to feel like a man has taken the time to get to know them on a really, and because it's so common for people just to you speak to them, you don't even know if the words are going in or whatever.
You have no idea.
You have no idea. So I think that's really, really, and one thing, if you're trying to get intimate with someone, I'm just thinking about the experiences that I've had with guys that I enjoy, is like when a guy asks me about what my goals are.
Yes. Okay. So this is what I was going to say. So you mentioned some practical examples, like find out what her favorite restaurant is and then make a reservation there. That would be a practical example. So this is even deeper level. So finding out the goals and then reiterating, oh, I was thinking about how you said you wanted to do your master's in Sydney. I've been there before, and be supportive. It's very hard to think of an example, but things that she talks about that are important to her, bring those up as well.
Yeah,
okay, exactly. In just conversation, not even in a practical aspect, not even just to make a new date happen, just to create more conversation. That's even cooler, I think, for a guy to do.
And that's the kind of stuff you can do once you're at the restaurant, right?
Yes,
that you take it to her, and you remember the food she liked, and now you're there, or she wanted to go there.
Yes.
And you're asking her these questions, and then you feel like, wow, this person is really interested in finding out who I am as a person. And another thing for women, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure a lot of women feel this, is that sometimes when you're dating, everything seems based on how you look. So when a guy is asking you these really in-depth questions, it shows that he might be interested in more than just that. And that is also very powerful.
And it's such a turn on.
It's such a turn on because it's so rare, once again. Because if the guys are always obsessing about how you look, not every, 90% of them aren't going to take the time to find out what your goals are or what you want to do with your life. And talk about those things. So,
or your fears or your passions.
And I love to say things like, when I'm talking, and guys appreciate it too. The same advice goes for women. Like, I use these same things. I say to guys, like, what are you interested in doing with your life? And then another question I love to ask guys, because I think guys have a hard time being vulnerable. I say, do you have stress in your life? Like, tell me about because it doesn't always have to be positive, because you really want to learn about someone, like, how do you deal with stress? What kind of stress do you have in your life?
Yeah.
And that tells you a lot about someone and how open they are or whatever,
Yeah. And okay, for me, the reason why it's such a turn on is not because it's so rare. It's because with sexual arousal, it starts in my brain.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that this is so important. We've talked about this a million times. I get turned on in my brain first. So I am always doing the math. Is he interested in me from what he says and his actions? And that translates into sexual arousal and desire for me. So I'm always wondering and listening and looking out for him being considerate and listening and asking back, and because that is totally what turns me on. Some guys do it all the time, so I don't find it to be that rare. I just find it to be what turns my brain on.
Yes, exactly, and that's very important.
Because it's like it turns my brain on to start fantasizing sexually, but it's reality-based fantasizing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's like what he really said or what he really did.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a turn on.
And also, I mean, we have discussed this in other podcasts, but I think there's a lot of guys out there in this climate that feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, maybe talking to women, or like the Me Too movement. There's some hesitation. So you can bring that up into conversation with women, even then when you're dating. You can say things like, "What makes you feel most respected?"
Oh, that's a great question.
Right? I mean, questions like that, and then you're learning too. Right? I mean, obviously every woman's going to be different, but these are the types of questions you can really get into, and women appreciate that, because it's okay not to know something.
Yeah.
But when you talk about it and ask about it, it can really spark some interesting discussions, and that can be a huge turn on.
Yeah. What makes you feel the most respected?
I'll tell you what, I know exactly what makes me feel the most respected. When I'm just getting to know a guy, I feel the most respected. We're talking about the very beginning stages of dating. When the guy doesn't ask me to send him nude pictures. When he communicates with me on it like regularly. And he doesn't put pressure on me to have sex with him.
Yeah.
Because that's, it's unnecessary, right? And I always notice the guys, it's so hot to me when they, A, don't ask for pictures, and B, don't hound me for like, when are we going to have sex, or lots of sexting.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So I really like it when guys try and get to know me and like say, another respectful thing that I love is when guys actually commit to going out in real life and meeting me.
Yep.
That's very awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. They commit, they go out, they show up.
Yeah, when they show up.
Yeah, because it's kind of scary. I get quite nervous meeting guys, especially if I don't know them very well. But I try my best to show up, because, that's like it goes both ways. You want them to show up, they want you to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're in the stages where, you're seeing each other. You're maybe not official yet, but you're starting to feel feelings. You're okay with that. You're connecting. And then I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind, this is going a little bit deeper, but love can be the biggest activator of fear. Okay, I think I see this a lot.
Yes, that's actually a very good point.
Yes.
Just terrifying.
It's very scary to feel love, and fear will want to wash that all away, basically. Your fears are going to pop up as soon as love starts coming up, because of vulnerabilities, because of past bad habits. So you need to make sure that you're really, again, always having those goals at the forefront of your mind. Of course, there's no way of avoiding getting hurt or making mistakes, and that's totally a universal truth forever. But you can definitely, getting right with yourself will keep you to the point where you know that even if you do get hurt, you'll be okay. And having that awareness that you might, these fears might be coming up because you are feeling love is really important as well. But being aligned with the other person, feeling comfortable enough to share these things, having connected on a level where you are able to, lean on them, share your fears with them, is something that will definitely get you through this next part of the dating relationship spectrum, basically.
Yeah, and I like it, I don't like being, and I have been in many relationships like this, but I like it when you can, like, you don't feel hesitant to talk about certain things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, like sometimes in relationships, you don't want to talk about your exes. And I get it. Like, there's certain things that are whatever.
On date 1, 2, and 3, I would definitely, there's nothing off the table, but there are some things that I would avoid talking too much about. Or just make sure your awareness is there, like, oh, wow, I've already mentioned my ex twice.
Yeah, on a first date, that would be a red flag.
That would be a red flag.
Yes.
So, but it's okay to talk about, I wouldn't be stressing about taking things off the table.
Yeah.
Because, I just had somebody asking me advice. He was saying, I always am the one who wants to talk about the meaning of life. And it's like, you can talk about the meaning of life on a first date. Yeah. And if you know that that's what you're looking for, and the person that you're on a date with wants to talk about going to the mall, then don't go on a second date.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly.
Because then your goal is to find somebody who you can talk about the meaning of life with.
Yeah, you got to figure out your love language.
Oh yes. Okay, so this is another thing. Rhea, say what you said before.
So I think that one important thing when you're first starting to date someone, and this is a great topic to get to know someone. It's important to figure out what each other's love language is, and everyone is different. For me, a guy gave me a bunch of weed the other day, and I was like, dude, you are speaking my love language. But that's not going to be the same for everybody. Some people's love language might be cuddling. Some might just getting praise or like being told they look beautiful. Some might be touch. Some maybe not touch. Some might be going on dates or this or that.
Or for me, it's like everything.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but I think that some people can be very specific and then some people can be very broad, but it's good to know. Because again, also so you can provide that love in the right way, because I think that's a conflict of relationships. You say, oh, but I give this person all this love and I do all these things, but it's just, they don't see it in that way because their love language is different. Yeah. But also when you're first getting to know someone first dating, you want to know because like maybe their love language, like maybe a guy doesn't want to give me weed all the time, or that's just one example. But do you know what I mean? Like maybe you don't want to provide that love in that way.
Yeah.
So it's good to know right off the bat.
If someone's love language is like constant PDA and that is just like so not your thing, then you shouldn't even start a relationship with them.
Exactly. Because that's going to just cause problems in the future, potentially. So I think I think that is a great thing to get to know someone. We talk about this thing, like what makes you feel most loved, what makes you feel most respected,
what makes you feel stressed out.
Yeah, what makes you feel stressed out? How do you give love to people? I know how I give love to people, and that's why I know what I have to offer. So it's good to know how you give love too. Mm-hmm. I think very important.
Yeah, so be very receptive, and then also be very communicative in, like Rhea did when the guy gave her some weed, and she immediately said, "You're speaking my love language." I think that if, as a guy, a girl does something that really connects with your heart or connects with making you feel loved, you should immediately tell her that.
Yes, that's a very good tip. That's what you want. That's part of the practice. So when you get that kind of feedback where then you remember it for next time.
Yes.
Right?
And then you can build on that, and it's compounded every time, and that's building on the building blocks of communication, because that could be a little bit scary, for some people to be like, wow, that, like, when you bought me those flowers, it made me feel so loved. It could be even scary to say that, but that is a very good first step in having one of those scary talks that you're going to have a million of them with a relationship, okay? That's all part of the being in a relationship, is having those scary conversations. So if you can say one little thing that might make you feel a little nervous, it actually is the beginning of building that cornerstone of communication, which is so important.
Yeah, and it is a practice. Like that is another thing that I wanted to really mention today was that we're not, like even like I'm not an date expert.
We are experts, actually.
I know. Rosa's I actually am an expert, but what I'm saying is any person, every person has to practice, even experts. Okay. Yeah. So you have to, and you might have to practice it every freaking day. And that's how you master something. It goes for everything you want to do in your life. But the same thing goes for dating. So just as you practice setting your boundaries, you can practice saying yes, you can practice saying no. Mm-hmm. That all builds you up inside to become very powerful.
Yeah, but you have to remember, you can't practice something unless you're in it, okay? You can't grow in a relationship unless you're in a relationship. So that's why we are giving everybody these tips and encouragement, is because go and practice, okay? Practice makes perfect. You're never going to be perfect, but the more you practice, the more likely it is you're going to either figure out what it is that you want, or maybe hone in the details of exactly what you were looking for, and then also have the opportunity to find somebody who is on the same page as you.
Yes, and if it makes you feel nervous or a little bit scared, that might be a sign that you need to practice it more. Yeah. So if you're having trouble being vulnerable to your sexual partners, that might mean that you might have to put a little extra effort in, and you might just practice saying something kind of challenging every now and again to someone new or a current partner.
I think that people will be so receptive to that.
Oh, they will. Yes.
And if they're not, you shouldn't date them.
Exactly.
Okay, it's like if you're doing something that's making you feel super vulnerable and the other person isn't really receptive to that, and you've kind of practiced it a couple times and you can just tell that they're not feeling it the way that you are, then don't date them anymore.
Yeah.
Okay? That's a very good sign that they're not on the same page.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to switch topics a little bit here because we're about to go on a pretty big rant. I want to talk about alcohol and dating. Okay, so we talked about the first few dates. I think that it's very normal to go somewhere and have a couple drinks, right? Super normal. But I would say that there are some ground rules that we should cover. Mm-hmm. Safety wise, and also just impressing people wise.
Yeah.
Like I've been on a first date before years ago. I came wasted to the date. He obviously didn't like me. Yeah. He made me split the bill with him. Yeah. And then we never talked again.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? He obviously knew I was wasted.
Yeah.
A gentleman should have paid for the date. To be honest, I think that he should have still paid. But I showed up drunk and it didn't go anywhere. So I think that's one of the main things. Don't show up drunk. Never have more than 2 drinks before you go to a date. No matter how high your tolerance is, you should not show up drunk to a date.
Yeah, I would agree. And there's so many different reasons why I don't like alcohol for overall a lot of reasons, but especially when it comes to dating and sex. If we're just talking about like getting to know someone, it's hard to get to know someone even when you're just a little bit drunk.
Totally.
Because it affects your personality, it affects your listening skills,
your memory.
It's distracting. Yeah. There's so many things. And you're not really being your true self. And I get that a lot of people have issues with that in general. Like, I think that's very common, but that makes it a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about date ideas where you don't drink. Like, for example, like going to Van Dusen Gardens and walking around, especially this time of year. There's like lights everywhere. It's very romantic, and you have the opportunity to talk. Yeah. And you also could go for a drink afterwards if you wanted. Yeah. But even, for example, for me, I think that when you start dating somebody, like I have all these goals in my life. Like I like working out every day. I try my best to not drink too much. Lately, I haven't been eating that much meat. But sometimes if I go on a date, I'll have too many drinks and I'll eat meat just because you're kind of like, you want to like seem very easygoing. You want to, be like easy breezy and you want to like indulge with the other person. I think that you could get into like a very early habit early on with the other person of indulging together. And that is also maybe a red flag that person isn't right for you.
Yeah.
if you're willing to immediately indulge in stuff that as a single person you wouldn't do, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really great point because like I have a very specific lifestyle. And yes, I would love to add someone to my life and potentially get intimate with someone and have a relationship, but it doesn't serve me to have someone whose habits aren't in line with mine.
Yes.
And so I look at that all the time. I have dated alcoholics in the past. And it's not great, to be honest.
Yeah, the communication, the intimacy is
For a
just
lot
not
of reasons,
there.
but also it doesn't align with what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Right? I barely drink at all. I don't mind having a couple of drinks here or there. And in fact, I like going out for a dinner and having a little bit of wine, getting to know someone. But that's the thing. It's like it's a slippery slope because it can become a habit going out for dinner. It can become a habit having drinks all the time when you're hanging out. So I prefer to get to know people doing things that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like go for a bike ride,
yeah.
go to the gym, go for a walk, like go to the art gallery, go to
Yes.
places where there actually isn't any alcohol for a period of time, like an hour or 90 minutes, and then that's the end of the date.
Yeah.
Okay, you can go away, you can both digest the conversation, you can really understand what you've learned about each other, and then maybe the next time you can do something where it could lead to a drink or dinner, like Rhea is saying. The other thing about alcohol is that, especially with guys, because I'm a girl, this is how I see it. When I'm dating guys and they're drunk, they cannot tell the signs of if I'm into it or not. And that can get very
Yes.
quickly into a very dangerous situation, right? Okay, so I am the kind of person that I will speak up for myself. I will leave a situation if I'm not comfortable, but there's a lot of women who don't.
This is so fucking funny. I'm having a major epiphany right now, you guys.
Tell us.
Like in this culture, this rape fucking culture we live in, it's always about how drunk the girl was. No one ever says, or how it impaired her judgment. No one ever talks when it comes to consent about how alcohol impairs a guy's ability to tell whether a woman is giving consent or
Oh my
not.
God, that is such an epiphany. Holy shit, that's blowing my mind too,
No
because
one ever speaks of this.
no one ever says how many drinks did the guy have. And if they do, it's like almost like, oh, well, he had a lot to drink. So like it's like almost as an excuse to like let him off the hook.
Yes, and so that is a huge issue with alcohol is that when a guy is drunk, he might not be able to tell if a woman is saying no.
Yeah, absolutely. He might really miss the mark. He might be the best guy ever who would never rape a woman, but he could put somebody in the position where she just kind of like shuts up and lets him do it.
Exactly.
Which also is very uncomfortable. Maybe that's not rape, but puts a woman in a very uncomfortable position and that no one should want to be a part of. But if you're drunk, you might have this idea, oh yeah, so she came over and then we kind of like wrestled around on the couch for a bit, then I fucked her and then she left. And she seemed to have a good time.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, buddy, you were fucking wasted and you had no idea what the hell was going on.
And then you can't remember the next day, right? He wouldn't even be able to remember potentially because alcohol can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You might not even be able to remember what you have done, how you did it, and if you were respectful at all. So that is a cautionary tale. And I would say that men should be very, very careful if they're worried about consent or all of that, respecting
Which
women.
every one of you should
be. You should be very careful with how much alcohol you're drinking before having sex with any woman.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone you're in a relationship or not.
Yeah.
And then, so that is huge.
Or any man. Like,
yes.
We talk a lot about like just our perspective, which is we're straight people. But this goes for any kind of sex at all, okay?
Yeah.
Whatever gender you may be.
Exactly. This is gender free.
If you're gonna have sex with somebody, if you're dating somebody, just be so careful about the amount of alcohol you're consuming. Because it's fun, totally. But you can really get into a position where you make a big mistake.
Yeah, you can make some big mistakes. And then also, on top of like making mistakes, maybe even having sex with people that you didn't even really want to have sex with, but you did. Mm-hmm. So either there's that part. Another issue I have with alcohol is that I don't feel that even in the most consensual sex, I think alcohol has a negative effect on sexual pleasure. So both
Totally, for guys and girls.
for guys and again
It's
gender,
absurd.
it's so crazy. And I notice it myself. Like even when I have 3 glasses of wine, that's not a lot, but I still have a harder time coming. And I think guys are the same. That I can't come like
They
when I'm
can't even get on a
impaired.
condom or get hard sometimes,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Is
and
that
it's the
hot?
same. Yeah, is that hot? Is that sexy? Is
Like,
that a good
is that
job?
sexy for the guy is what I'm saying. I'm speaking to you as a guy. I'm saying, is that hot for you when you drink too much and you can't even get hard? No. So keep that in mind too. That's not a good turn on for you as a guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But I completely agree with you, Rhea. I have way harder of a time coming when
Yeah.
I'm drunk. Even a few glasses of wine. I completely agree.
Yeah, so I mean that's a huge thing for me too. And I've had sex with drunk guys, right? I mean I don't get drunk very often myself, and I don't have a lot of drunk sex, but
But you have.
I have, and I've also had sex with guys that were drunk, and it wasn't that great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was a disappointment, and he didn't pleasure me, and not only did he, because you're impaired, and so and these are just like I think we brought a few points up here. There's way more.
Way more.
It affects your sleep. It affects your body. It affects your health, which
Yeah.
all affects your relationships and your sex life.
Yeah.
So these things are, you should think about it. Plus your pocketbook. It's expensive. I mean, there's financial. So I mean, we could go on and on and on
Yeah.
about drinking.
Well, and I mean, one of the other consequences, not only might you rape somebody by accident or on purpose because you're impaired, even if nothing happens and the girl leaves, if there are things you don't remember in the morning, you're gonna have a stressful day. The kind of anxiety that you get when you don't remember and you know you may have affected somebody or had weird conversations, the downward spiral that goes on, the shame spiral that happens when you're hungover, it can ruin your entire day. So making sure to keep that in mind as well as a consequence, because that's such a waste of your own time to ruin your whole day. And then, how you brought up, sometimes you have sex with someone that you didn't even really want to have sex with because you were so wasted. I mean, I'm sure those people go through a ton of anxiety.
I could tell you firsthand. I've done that. I've definitely done that.
You
in my
go
20s.
in the shower and you put the water on the hottest water and you're just in there for an
burning
hour.
Your skin off.
Yeah.
You're like, what have I done?
What have I done? And you're like, did we use a condom? There's so much stress that goes along with just having made that decision in an impaired way. So I think that as adults, as people who are, we're looking to line up our goals with our life choices, keep these things in mind, because alcohol, it's everywhere. It's totally legal to get wasted. People wonder why you're not drinking. It's the only drug that you have to justify not doing.
Yeah,
if you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm not really doing MDMA right now," they'd be like, "Cool, good for you." But if you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm not drinking right now," they'll be like, "Well, why? Is it for a month? Are you sober September? What's the plan?" And you're like, okay, well, you constantly have to justify it. So just remember, it's totally rampant, and it can be so easy to just have those habits where you're just going on dates, getting wasted, and then doing things that you might not like doing. I think that alcohol kind of always has a negative effect, especially after 3 drinks. I think within 3 drinks, you can have that rosy glow. You can be a little bit more comfortable opening up to somebody, or it might calm your nerves. But you have to be so aware of anything past that, especially if you're getting to know a new person. I think it can be so dangerous.
Yeah, I really do. And I mean, I agree with you. And I think also just like it's good to go back to basics too. When it comes to sex, like sober, I think people should master sober sex,
Yeah.
and really just like try, because I bet you there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of sober sex.
Yeah. It could be a whole nother level of hot.
And I think that you want to masturbate sober, and then you want to have sex with people sober and really feel it. Because what happens when you're drinking or you're even taking drugs during sex is you're not getting that full raw feeling inside of yourself. So
and that might be why people are drinking a lot. They're afraid of those feelings, and I totally understand that too.
Especially if you're having trouble orgasming. If you're a woman and you're having trouble having orgasms during sex, but you notice that maybe you're having some wine during these times, maybe try without the wine and see if that helps.
And always just go back to yourself. Make sure you're having sex with yourself.
Yeah.
If you have somebody you trust and you're having a hard time orgasming when the two of you are engaged in play or sex, make him step off the bed, off the couch, and watch you.
Yeah.
Okay, we've said this before. He's got to be able to watch you pleasure yourself, and
The way that you would do it naturally.
Yes, the way that you would do it when you're by yourself. Because even sometimes just being that vulnerable will break open the part of you that's been suppressing your ability to orgasm when you're with him.
Yeah, exactly. And another, I mean, this is a total, now I'm sidetracked on how to have an orgasm, but one thing that I've added, and I've actually spoke about this on my podcast, I take my own advice all the time. Actually, the podcast is really for me.
Yeah.
It's just a reminder of all the things that I need to do to improve my life.
It's not for you.
But one thing that's helped me so much orgasming with guys, because I think I spoke about this on our first podcast, it wasn't always so easy for me. Especially with new people, it would take sometimes weeks and weeks for me to become comfortable and vulnerable enough to orgasm. But now I do a lot more fantasizing about guys that I'm going to have sex with. So if I know I'm dating someone and I think that, 3 dates down the road, I'm going to have sex with them, I actually incorporate them into my fantasies when I'm masturbating.
Oh my God, me too. It's such a good idea.
Helps. So
Wow.
It's so weird. It's like it's exactly what we always say, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
If you find whatever's hottest about them, everything's different, and then you sort of fit them into your fantasy and whatever works. You don't force it. You literally have to think about, okay, what makes this person hot? What would I like them to do to me or with them? And then you incorporate it that way. But it has helped me significantly.
Yeah, I always think about guys like jerking off too. I feel like I've talked to a lot of girls and they like when they see a guy jerk off.
Yes, I do. I love it.
Right?
Yes,
I don't know what
yes.
it is. It's something. Well, one thing, it's not really like in pornos, and seeing that raw like right in front of you. I think that's super hot. So I fantasize about that a lot, and then like I just cannot wait until I meet somebody where I can make them do that in front of me, or ask them to do that in front of me.
Yes.
And so I think that's a good point. If you're a little bit nervous about wanting to have sex with yourself in front of a guy, think about how hot it would be if they did it in front of you, okay?
Yeah.
That you wouldn't be embarrassed or like think it was weird. You would be super into it.
Yeah.
So remember that if they ask you or if you are wanting to do it with them.
And it's exactly the same thing as the love language. Everyone is different.
Yes.
Everyone is an individual. So everyone masturbates differently. Like we will say, I'm going to say this every single time. There's no two girls or guys that masturbate the same way. That's why it's so important to do this kind of stuff, because there's an expectation in our minds that we all do it the same way. It's maybe because of porn, I don't know, but it's just not the case. If you have any questions in your mind, do some research, get the people that you are having sex with to masturbate in front of you, and you'll see everyone is different. Or go on a campsite.
Yeah,
I mean, I love watching guys on campsites, and that's where I learned
they're
that.
very inventive, right? And it's so broad.
Well, it's just the way, especially with guys, but you could say the exact same thing about women. It's like every dick is different. So I noticed the way that they do their hands is different. Sometimes they're using actual things, fleshlights. Sometimes they're wearing different lubes. It's so varied. But it goes back to the snowflake. Everyone's got different genitals. Everyone's got different ways of doing things, different fantasies. And you have to embrace that. And maybe knowing that will make you feel more comfortable, because I think people feel embarrassed to masturbate in front of someone, but you don't have to be, because you're an individual. You're going to be different.
Yeah.
No two are the same. So we just have to appreciate that.
And don't forget, if you are giving that person the permission to show you fully how they enjoy themselves, you will also get that permission for yourself, okay?
Yeah.
So it will build and get better. What I found, if a guy is very interested in how I come, that's a big turn on. If he doesn't touch my clit, he doesn't really spend a lot of time going down on me, and he doesn't really seem that interested in my pleasure, it's not a turn on. It'll be way less likely that even with my own hands while we're fucking, will I be able to make myself come. Because in my head, I know that he doesn't really care. But the second I know that he is interested in my pleasure, I will come just like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to give that person the permission by showing them that you're interested in their pleasure.
Yes,
I think that's one of the
exactly.
biggest turn-ons.
Yeah, I would
think
agree.
that men, especially the guys that I've fucked, don't understand that to a full degree sometimes.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh well, I went down on you for 10 minutes, so it's like you're good, right?
You gotta really love her pussy too. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, this
we
is
were
part
saying
of
last night. Okay, we were texting last night, and Rhea was like, or maybe it was this morning. She was like, my favorite kind of dick is like a flaccid dick.
That's right.
Because it doesn't need. I don't need a hard dick to get off.
No.
Okay.
That's
I
the
want you
last
to like
thing I need.
bury your face in my pussy.
That's right. And a guy with a flaccid, small, like a dick that doesn't work is going to make you come like no other man, because what choice does he have?
Yes.
And dicks don't even make you come anyways. They understand that.
Yeah.
I just can't. It's so funny because guys are always trying to tell me about their big, hard dicks.
Yeah, and you're
I'm
like, cool. I want a small
a
flaccid
big,
dick.
hard dick's going to do nothing for me, bro. I need the guy who's like 50 with no boner, who's going to eat me out, like worship the fuck out of my pussy.
Yeah.
Right? And not let me go and just eat me out until I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of man that I need.
Another tip that we should not even be telling guys. Women are going to be falling in love left, right, and center in Vancouver after this.
No, guys we're changing Vancouver.
Yeah, well, even if one person changes their habits a little bit, even if it's just you who do something a little that scares you a little bit today, or with your current dating partner or your relationship, or on your new first date, you take one piece of our advice, that's a win, because that will spread, that goodness, that bravery, the kindness, all of that will spread, and it will get bigger and bigger.
Yes.
And if things work for you, share it with your friends, and then let them know to listen to our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rosa and Rhea.
Make sure that you're subscribed on everything, because that really supports us and that really helps. And that means a lot to us.
Go worship some pussy. That's my advice for today. Like, seriously, we talked about
if
cock
you're a girl,
worshiping.
worship your own pussy. Go home and masturbate. If you're a guy, go worship some pussy tonight. If she wants it, don't even fuck her.
Yeah, say, I'm not even going to penetrate you.
Don't even do it. Just worship her pussy with whatever that takes, with your mouth or your hands or a toy, whatever it is that she wants in whatever way. Go do that.
Yeah, I'm going to end this.
Thank you so much for listening. As always, make sure to follow us on everything. We have a Twitter, we have an Instagram, we have a YouTube channel. We are on the podcast app for iPhone. So make sure you subscribe, rate, and review for us. That helps us out a lot. And as always, go have some good sex.